In Chapter 4, we focused on compensation, how it must be disclosed, documented, and routed properly. We saw how transparency protects trust and how improper handling creates enforcement risk. Now we step into the heart of professional conduct, because advertising and compensation are visible. But conduct is what defines your license. Module 5.1 centers on R4-28-1101, one of the most important rules governing Arizona real estate professionals. And the modernization here is subtle but powerful. The duties in this rule now clearly apply to the licensee. That single word matters. It eliminates ambiguity. It expands enforceability. And it clarifies that your professional obligations do not disappear simply because you are acting in a different capacity. Clarifies rule applies. Even when acting as principal historically, some licensees argued that when they were buying or selling their own property, they were acting as a private party, not as a real estate professional. The modernization of R4-28-1101 clarifies that duties apply to the licensee. That means the standard follows you. Let's make this practical. Scenario 1. You are a licensed agent. You purchase an investment property for yourself. You disclose that you are licensed. During negotiations, you intentionally withhold known material defects because you are just the buyer. The fact that you are acting as a principal does not eliminate your obligations under professional conduct standards. Your license follows you. Scenario 2. You list your own property for sale. You draft the listing, market the property, and negotiate directly. You believe you can relax compliance standards because you are the owner. You cannot. You are still a licensee. And under R4-28-1101, duties of honesty, reasonable care, and proper conduct apply. This clarification closes the gap between personal capacity and professional responsibility. Your license is not something you turn off. It is a credential that carries continuous obligations. Removes ambiguity between broker versus salesperson. The modernization also removes confusion about who is bound by professional conduct standards. Before clarification, some language distinctions created arguments about whether certain duties applied primarily to brokers or to salespersons. Now the rule applies to licensee. That includes brokers designated brokers, salespersons. Everyone licensed under Title 32, Chapter 20 is subject to the same professional conduct standards. This strengthens accountability. Imagine this scenario. A salesperson claims, "That was my broker's responsibility." The broker claims, "The agent handled that independently." The department now evaluates both under the umbrella of licensee duties. Shared responsibility does not eliminate individual responsibility. Supervision still matters, but individual conduct remains independently reviewable. Clarity removes finger-pointing defenses, expands enforceability. This is where the modernization becomes powerful. When a rule clearly applies to licensee, enforcement becomes simpler. The department does not have to analyze whether the person was acting as a broker or as a principal. The question becomes, were they licensed? Did their conduct violate professional standards? If yes, discipline may follow. Consider this real-world type of situation. An agent purchases a distressed property for themselves and fails to disclose known structural issues when reselling it months later. They argue that they were acting as an investor, not an agent. Under clarified standards, that distinction is weaker. The conduct of a licensee is subject to review, regardless of the capacity in which they acted. This reinforces the principle we introduced in Chapter 1. Less ambiguity equals easier discipline. When language is clear, enforcement analysis becomes direct. How this intersects with supervision. Remember Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Supervision standards require brokers to exercise reasonable oversight. Now layer that over this clarification. If duties apply to every licensee, then brokers must ensure that their supervised licensees understand that those duties apply at all times, even in personal transactions, even in off-market deals, even when acting as principal. The duty to exercise reasonable care does not disappear because the transaction feels personal. Professional standards are continuous. Negotiation and conduct implications. This clarification also strengthens enforcement in negotiation disputes. Imagine an agent aggressively misrepresents facts during negotiation while claiming they were simply negotiating hard. Under R4 28-1101, honesty and fair dealing remain core duties. Modernized language strengthens the department's ability to evaluate negotiation conduct without parsing role distinctions. Your negotiation style must remain within professional boundaries. Strong advocacy is allowed. Misrepresentation is not. A simple way to remember this rule. Your license is not a costume. It is a permanent overlay on your conduct. If you are licensed, your actions are measured against professional standards, whether you are representing a client or yourself. That mindset alone prevents many compliance mistakes. How this connects to Section 5.2. In the next module, we will examine supervision standards under R4 28-1103 and how clarified oversight expectations increase broker accountability. Because if duties apply to every licensee, supervision determines how those duties are monitored and enforced. Professional conduct is the foundation. Supervision is the structure. Together they define compliance in 2025.